Chair Connor, the meeting is now live.
All right, thanks, Andrea. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February 22nd meeting of the Heritage Advisory Committee. I should also start off by acknowledging that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people, and the municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. With that, today is the end of my term as chair, so our first order of business today is for me to step down and for an election for a new chair to take place. So Andrea is going to handle that. And before I did do that, I wanted to say how much I've enjoyed working on the committee. We have excellent members. I think we've had some great discussions and I think made some good decisions. And I'd also like to give a big thank you to the city's planning and heritage staff. They've consistently provided us with excellent reports, and they've always been able to answer even the most off-the-wall questions. So thank you to all. It's been a real pleasure for me. And with that, I'll step down and hand things over to Krista, who will conduct our election. So thank you all.
Thank you, Chair Connor. And actually, I'll be doing the elections on Krista's behalf. So we'll start with the election of chair. So I will open the floor for nominations for the position of chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee. And I'd like to remind everyone that this is similar to other motions before the committee, and I'll need a mover and a seconder. And if a committee member wishes to be chair, they can nominate themselves. Do I have any takers for the chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee?
I would nominate, slow as York speaking, I would nominate Patrick Connor again for a second term. It's run beautifully under his chairmanship and, as he says, with support from city staff. Patrick?
That's very nice of you to say, Lois. I appreciate that, but I think I've been here for as long as I can be. I'm limited to 4 years, and I think it's been 4 years and a month now because we missed our last meeting. So okay. Really, I think there are so many people who have more time on the committee who should step up. I think I formally resigned, so I really shouldn't be suggesting anyone, but lots of talent here, so go for it.
All right, do I have anyone that would like to nominate someone else to be chair of the committee?
I just finished as chair of the Point Pleasant Park the last couple of years. And I'm used to the role. If nobody else wants it, I will jump in and help.
So Brian, this is Andrea speaking. So are you putting your name forward to be chair?
Sure.
Okay, may I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I like his courage, and that, my name is Azuka Onwuka, and I'm seconding the motion that Brian McDonald should be our chair. I like the courage of him stepping forward when nobody was willing to do that.
Okay, thank you for your seconding, Azuka. So we have one nomination on the floor, and since Brian's put his name forward, I'm not going to ask you to confirm your desire to have your name put forward. For administrative purposes, I'm going to call twice more for any further nominations for the position of chair. Are there any further nominations for the position of chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee? And a third and final time, any further nominations for the position of chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee? All right. So where we have the one nominee, I will declare that Brian McDonald has been nominated Chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee.
We clap. Congratulations.
All right, thank you. So Brian, I will hand the floor over to you. Now,
I
do you-
didn't print an agenda. I just was
Okay.
getting, so if you can walk me through the agenda for this meeting and then we can go from there.
Okay, I'm going to actually send you the annotated agenda just shortly.
Okay,
What we're going to do now is have an election for vice chair.
Okay.
So basically what you will do is you will follow the same procedure that I just used for the nominations of chair. So
exactly.
you'll ask if there's any nominations for the position of vice chair.
Mhm. So are there nominations for a vice chair position for this committee? Another stampede. Any nominations? Keep in mind, you can nominate yourself. Any nominations?
I'm new to the committee, but I'd be happy to take on the vice chair role.
Sorry, who was that?
This is David Patterson.
Oh, David. Okay.
It's my first day, so I don't have a lot of experience, but if no one else is interested in stepping forward, I'm
Okay,
happy to take on that vice chair role.
thank you.
But anyone else, I know there's people who've been on the committee longer than a day. You may also be well equipped to do it.
Do we have a seconder for the vice chair position?
Lois York, I'll second it.
Thank you. So with just one nomination in play, that would make David Patterson the vice chair of this committee.
And chair, we will need you to ask three more times for any further nomination.
I thought I did that earlier. Sorry.
No worries.
No. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? When none so be, we can declare, we have a seconder, so we can declare David as vice chair.
And that is good. So Chair, I'm just about to email you the annotated agenda, but next on the agenda would be the approval of the November 30th, 2022 minutes. And you'll need a mover and a seconder for that.
So if people have had a chance who were there would help. They've reviewed the minutes. Is there a mover to accept those minutes as correct?
I will so move. It's Lois York again.
Thank you, Lois.
I'll second.
And thank you, Luke. So moved by Lois, seconded by Luke. Do we have approval for acceptance of these minutes from the committee? Anyone opposed? Silence gives consent.
Could I ask for a small correction? It's not
Oh.
anything that was in real error. My last name is spelled with an E. And
Okay.
I think in here it has been altered to YORK. So if it could be corrected, I'd
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay. Can we note that correction, please?
Yes, Chair, that correction is being noted and we will amend the minutes appropriately.
Thank you.
So since no one was opposed, minutes have been passed. I'm going to.
Now, Chair, we move to the approval of the order of business.
You have your agendas in order of business. Do we have a motion to approve?
You should ask for whether or not.
Additions or deletions? Yeah,
That is
yeah.
correct. And I can confirm that from the clerk's office, we do not have any additions or deletions to today's agenda. Just
Okay.
ask the members if they have any additions or deletions or if they wish to change the order of business.
Anyone on the committee who has additions, deletions, order changes? None so being, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as circulated? Anybody?
I'll move that.
Thank you, David. And a seconder?
Tyler and I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. And everyone is in agreement that we'll accept it as such. Anyone opposed? They're accepted. That motion is carried. Oh,
So Chair, I've emailed the annotated
yeah, I'm
agenda.
gonna have to minimize this to go into that because that's the email I'm
Okay.
working in.
Yeah, no worries.
That's
So,
technical difficulties day. Give me one moment, thanks.
yeah, no worries.
Okay. Oh, it's not gonna do that. The Zoom meeting. Mhm. It's just taking a moment here.
Chair McDonald, are you good to go?
No, it's not gonna let me in. You're gonna have to
Okay.
walk me through this
I
one.
will walk you through.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here today, but our
Yeah, no
upload,
worries.
download speeds have gone to
Yeah.
nothing.
No worries. So the next item on the agenda would be business arising out of the minutes, but there's none. And then we would go to the call for declaration of conflict of interest. So ask the members if they have any conflicts to declare.
Are there any conflicts of interest among the members for this particular agenda? No conflicts, then we can proceed.
And then the next item on the agenda is correspondence, petitions, and delegations. So you'll ask me if there's any correspondence or petitions.
Do we have anything, Andrea, for correspondence?
There's been no correspondence received by the clerk's office for this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And we also haven't received any petitions, but you may want to ask members if they've received, if they have any petitions to forward.
Have any individual members petitions they'd like to bring forward at this time? It would seem not. Okay, we can move forward.
And then next on the agenda would be presentations, but there are none.
Mhm.
And any information items brought forward, and there's none for that. So now we are on to the staff reports.
Okay. And our first staff report is,
6112 Coburg Road, and Carter Brogray McPhee is our staff member for that. And I'll promote him so that he can share his presentation.
okay, thank you. Carter.
Just one moment while I set up the screen sharing.
Sure.
Hopefully you can all see that.
Yep, we're good.
Great. So good afternoon to the chair and members of the Heritage Advisory Committee. Staff are pleased to bring before the committee case H00542, the heritage registration application for 6112 Coburg Road in Halifax. So on May 25th, 2022, an application was made by the property owner to consider the inclusion of 6112 Coburg Road in the Registry of Heritage Property for the Halifax Regional Municipality. 6112 Coburg Road is located in the Old West End neighborhood on the southern side of Coburg Road between the intersections with Henry Street and Seymour Street. The subject property, as shown here, lies at the southeast corner of the intersection of Coburg Road and Seymour Street. One small note of correction. On page 3 of the staff report, the photo provided of the front of the subject dwelling, which is shown here, is incorrectly captioned. The caption for this photo should correctly read Figure 1, 6112 Coburg Road, November 4th, 2022. The Heritage Advisory Committee is asked to score the subject property on the registration evaluation criteria before you. There are a few small things worth noting about the criteria themselves. Firstly, criterion 2 permits the evaluation of either 2A, historical importance, or 2B, architectural importance. And for this property, we will be evaluating for 2A, historical importance. Secondly, criterion 4 is split into 4A, construction type, and 4B, style. These are evaluated separately, each with a maximum of 10 points. And finally, criterion 5, architectural integrity, is concerned with the degree to which the character-defining elements have been retained. In other words, how much has the building changed over time? And it is not a measure of the building's condition, which can, of course, be ameliorated. As per routine, I will present a summary of staff's findings for each of the evaluation criteria, pausing after each one to allow HAC time to deliberate on the proposed scoring range and to come to a consensus on the score to be awarded. So the first evaluation criterion is age. The construction of the subject dwelling was completed in 1892. This age is sourced from a newspaper article in the Halifax Herald from December 31st, 1892, which described all the new houses built in that year. The article mentions a home built on Coburg Road by Mr. Burke, who was indeed the property owner at this period in time. This article is corroborated by historical maps and by the mortgage taken out against subject property by Mr. Burke in the same year, which was presumably used to fund the present dwelling's construction. Based on the construction completion of 1892, staff recommend a score of 13 points for age. And I will hand it over to the chair so that HAC can deliberate.
Is there any input from members of the committee regarding the level of this score at 13? Do we have agreement with that? We agree with staff evaluation? They would oppose to the staff evaluation. I'm assuming that's acceptable to everyone. I don't know if we are going to vote on each one of these or just reach a consensus as we go through.
We just reached consensus,
Okay.
but if one of the members could actually say that they agree with 13, that would be good.
I would agree with 13.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The next point.
Thank you. So the second evaluation criterion is historical importance for historical relationships. So we will begin with John R. Burke, who was born in Charlottetown in 1861. He moved to Halifax and worked as a hardware clerk, as an inspector for the London Life Assurance Company, and as a health inspector. In 1891, he purchased the empty lot at the corner of Coburg and Seymour from news editor William Dennis for $700, and he built the present dwelling in 1892 for $6,000, $4,000 of which was obtained via a mortgage from the Board of Governors of Dalhousie College. The house was praised in its time in the Halifax Herald newspaper as a handsome wooden residence. It appears that John Burke suffered financial troubles at the turn of the century, and the governors of Dalhousie College foreclosed on the home in 1901. The Burke family relocated to 158, which is now 5966 Spring Garden Road, and John Burke and his wife Frances remained at their Spring Garden Road residence until their deaths in 1921 and 1927, respectively. Next, we have Charles Edward Willoughby Dodwell, who was born in 1853 in Gloucestershire, England, and immigrated to Canada, where he obtained his Bachelor of Arts at King's College in Windsor, Nova Scotia in 1873. He worked as an assistant engineer on the construction of major railways in Nova Scotia, and then worked on various railway and rail bridge projects in Ontario and Quebec. By 1891, he became district engineer of the Department of Public Works in Canada, also known as the Dominion Public Works of Canada. And by 1922, he is listed as the supervising district engineer of the Maritimes for the Department of Public Works in Canada. Outside of his direct work, Dodwell did much to professionalize the field of engineering in Canada. He was one of the founders of the Canadian Society of Civil Engineers, which is now known as the Engineering Institute of Canada, and he served as its vice president from in 1904 and again in 1918. He was chairman of the committee that established the basis for provincial licensing authorities for engineering, such as the Association of Professional Engineers of Nova Scotia, of which he was the first president. His prominence in Nova Scotian society is further emphasized by evidence such as the historic photograph displayed here, showing Dodwell touring the Studley Quoits Club with Edward the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VIII. Dodwell rented the subject property from 1902 to 1918, at which point the city auctioned it for arrears of taxes, and Dodwell's lawyer purchased it at auction and conveyed it to Dodwell the following week. Dodwell and his wife Alice resided at the subject property until their deaths in 1930 and 1923, respectively. And lastly, we have Dr. James Robert Corsten, who was born in Halifax in 1879. He studied at the Halifax Academy and then earned his MD at Dalhousie University in 1902. He established a medical practice in Halifax and lectured at Dalhousie as an associate professor of medicine and clinical medicine from 1913 to 1945. He served on Dalhousie's Board of Governors for several years, and in his retirement, he worked as a medical examiner for United States Immigration at Pier 21. Dr. Corsten purchased the subject property in 1931 and used it as both his residence and as his medical practice. He and his wife, Frances, resided there until their deaths in 1963 and 1970, respectively. Owing primarily to Charles E.W. Dodwell's national significance for his contributions to the professionalization of the field of engineering in Canada, and to his role as supervising district engineer of the Maritimes for the Department of Public Works of Canada, and the subject property's strong connection to him as his primary residence for 28 years, staff recommend a score of between 11 and 15 points. And I will pass it back to the chair for deliberation.
Thank you. Interesting. Do we have any input as to where we'd like to fall within that range, or is that range acceptable in general to the committee? Does anyone feel the range is inappropriate? No? Do we have anyone suggesting a number in that range that they feel would work for this? Personally, I would think, just given his prominence, the fact there's a long community connection there, people working within the city, I tend towards the high end of that, 15 personally. So you would disagree with that?
I'll agree with you.
You agree? Okay, thank you. So if we go with 15, is that acceptable to the committee?
I would support 15.
Yes, I would too. Lois York.
Thank you, Lois. Anyone opposed to 15? Okay, let's move on to the next category. We'll leave that one at 15.
Thank you to the chair. The third evaluation criterion is for significance of architect or builder. Staff were unable to identify the original architect and or builder for 6112 Coburg Road, and as such, must recommend a score of 0.
That sort of makes sense. They wouldn't feel otherwise. There's no input there to go with. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I agree with the 0. It's David here.
We leave that at 0. And the next category.
Thank you to the chair. Evaluation criterion 4A is architectural merit for construction type. Again, please note that style will be considered separately in the next criterion. 6112 Coburg Road is a 2-story building of light frame, most likely balloon frame wooden construction with an L-shaped plan. It is built atop a coursed rubble foundation of slate and granite. The outside walls are presently clad in aluminum siding. Balloon framing, while common for its own time, was replaced by platform framing from the 1930s onwards and is growing increasingly less common in present-day Halifax. As such, staff recommend a score between 1 and 3 points.
Okay, between 1 and 3. Any input from the committee as to which of those numbers we should use?
I know she knows.
Okay.
I think that the range seems fair. I think, given the increasing rarity, balloon framing in Halifax, we see a lot of these buildings lost. I would tend towards the higher end of that, so I'd propose a 3.
Yeah, I think you're right. A wouldn't feel differently about that. Any other numbers to be proposed? Okay, if everyone's in agreement, we'll go with the 3. And that criteria, we can move on to the next.
Thank you to the chair. Evaluation criterion 4B is architectural merit for style. 6112 Coburg Road is an example of the late Victorian eclectic style, incorporating elements of the Italianate, Halifax House, and Queen Anne styles. The basic form of the home, box-like and with a near flat roof, and its use of 2-story bay windows is characteristic of the Halifax House style, sometimes called the Halifax box or Victorian plain style. The home's substantial overhanging eaves and bracketed cornice with large, often paired corbels, flanking sets of smaller brackets, and the unusual rectangular bay window on the western elevation are borrowed from the Italianate style. And lastly, the front entrance borrows its pediment from the Queen Anne style. The full list of character-defining elements is provided in the staff report. However, some of the most notable details include the 3 bay windows with their interstitial bell roofs, large corbels and smaller brackets, paneling and corner bead moldings, the large pediment above the front entrance, and the front entrance itself with its paneled wooden door, its 5-light transom and side light arrangement, and its detailed woodwork. Overall, the subject dwelling with its eclectic mix of styles is moderately rare, and staff recommend a score of between 4 and 6 points.
Do we have any input from the committee on that? What number we'd like to go, or if that's an appropriate range? Speaking personally, I lived in Yarmouth for 3 years, and there are some really eclectic buildings down there. And in comparison, this is not quite as eclectic as some that exist out there. But it still has some unusual features in the character-defining elements. Would we be agreeable to a 6 on this?
I would agree.
Okay. Anyone disagree?
I would
Okay,
also support 6.
6. Okay, well, we'll go with the 6 then. 6 on that one.
The fifth evaluation criterion is the property's architectural integrity. 6112 Coburg Road retains its original L-shaped layout, and nearly all the character-defining elements of the subject dwelling remain present to this day, including the 3 bay windows, the various corbels, brackets, trim work, and paneling, the pedimented front door, and so on. In keeping with Standard 2 of the Standards and Guidelines for the Conservation of Historic Places in Canada, 2nd edition, the small rear porch is considered to be a character-defining element in its own right due to its age, its distinctive craftsman style, and its visual prominence from Seymour Street, and it therefore does not detract from the property's heritage integrity. There are 2 notable changes to the dwelling's exterior. Firstly, the siding of the home, which is presumed to have originally been either wood shingle or wooden clapboard siding, has been covered or replaced with what appears to be aluminum siding bearing a faux wood grain pattern. Secondly, most of the foundation's visible exterior has been parged with cement, with the original exposed foundation only visible on the eastern elevation. The subject dwelling remains largely unchanged, and as such, staff recommend a score of between 11 and 15 points.
And once again, from the committee, is there a sense of what the number should be for this integrity score?
This is David here, and I'm kind of thinking, especially with regards to the aluminum siding, maybe this is maybe leaning a little bit more towards the low end.
Yeah, I agree.
A bit of a modest change, or sort of at that 11 area. For I suggest here.
I would agree. Anyone else have a input? Do you think it's too low?
I was going to suggest 12 or 13. I think, certainly in terms of the character defining elements, everything is pretty much entirely intact. And even, elements like seeing the original wood windows, which becomes increasingly rare year on year. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more towards the mid-range.
Okay, makes sense. What if we went with, what's that, sorry?
Lois York, I would agree with Luke. Mid-range, 12, 13.
Perhaps we could look at 13. Do anyone disagree with that? Well, so we have agreement on 13, lucky number. We'll move forward with that.
Thank you to the chair. The 6th and final evaluation criterion is the property's relationship to the surrounding area. The subject property is situated on part of what was formerly lot number 2 of the subdivision of the James B. Uniacke lands, which encompassed lots on both sides of Seymour Street and Lamarchant Street, between intersections with Coburg Road and University Avenue. The subject property was built during a period of rapid development in the Old West End neighborhood from the late 1800s onward, as the neighborhood shifted from a collection of wealthy rural estates to a more middle-class suburb of the growing city. The immediate surroundings of 6112 Coburg Road consist of a mix of residential and institutional uses. Most buildings in this area range between 2 and 4 stories, with the exception of 2 10-story apartment towers located on nearby blocks. The subject property and neighboring properties are zoned ER2, Established Residential Zone 2. 6112 Coburg Road is just over 1 block away from 2 other registered heritage properties on Coburg Road, those being Toomey House at 6215 Coburg Road and Hartshorn Lowndes House at 6221 Coburg Road. Other registered properties can be found further west on Coburg Road and further east on Roby Street. 6112 Coburg Road fits well with the surrounding contributing unregistered and registered heritage properties, and is a visual focal point due in part to its corner location and in part to its unusually large size. Given its visual prominence in the context of the greater streetscape, its proximity to other registered heritage properties, and the surrounding density of contributing unregistered heritage properties, the subject property is considered a valuable asset to the area's cohesive architectural legacy, and staff recommend a score between 6 and 10 points.
Thank you. So between 6 and 10, do we have any input from committee members as to what the score should be for this? It certainly does fit into the neighborhood. There's no question.
Yeah, I'll venture a 10. So on the top end of this, I think largely, as staff pointed out, the corner properties, defining that corner's incredibly important. And I think the fact that it's, sort of anchors this virtually unchanged streetscape, I think it's particularly important. So that's why I'd put it at the 10.
Any other input from other members?
Tyler here and I'll agree.
Sorry, what was that?
Tyler here and I'll agree.
Okay, so we're looking at a 10. Anyone disagree with a 10 for this? Okay. No one disagrees. Let's move forward with a 10.
So the recommendations are now before the committee for consideration. Should the subject property score 50 or more points on evaluation, staff advise the committee to proceed in making the following 2 recommendations to council. Thank you.
And our total score is 28. 31, 34, 40. Yeah, we're definitely over 50.
Chair McDonald, I did a tally and it's 60 out of 100.
6. Okay, thank you. Your math is faster than mine. So our recommendation at this point would be that this property achieve heritage status. Is anyone opposed to that? Would we recommend this, I should say?
So Chair, I actually have the motion that can be placed on the floor in the meeting chat. So if any of the members wish to move the motion, it's there for them to read.
Hello, Tyler here. I move that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the HRM Council set a date for a heritage hearing to consider the inclusion of the subject property in the Registry of Heritage Properties for the Halifax Regional Municipality, and 2, approve the request to include 6112 Coburn Road in the Registry of Heritage Property for the Halifax Regional Municipality as shown on map 1 of the staff report dated February 9, 2023, as a municipal heritage property under the Heritage Property Act.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second. It's Luke.
Thank you. Is everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
So Chair McDonald, the next item on the agenda is item 912, which is the Heritage Incentives Program. And Aaron Murnahan is here to present.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and welcome to all the new members of HAC. I'm glad you got to experience a heritage registration on your first meeting with HAC. So that's great to see, and a successful one at that. I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Paul Boucher, who is one of our junior planners with the program. He unfortunately is sick today and is unable to join us. So I'm just going to get Andrea to give me sharing capability. Oh, I see I've already got it.
Yep.
And my dog is just in the background drinking water very loudly, so I apologize for that. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes.
So as Seamus mentioned in his orientation slides, we do have a couple of annual grant programs. This one is the broad general program that applies to any registered property across the municipality. And this typically comes forward to HAC and council prior to the new budget season beginning, which will be sometime after April 1st. So we'll get right into to what the nominees are for this year's program, and at the end we'll have a recommendation for you. So the incentive program encourages the ongoing maintenance and conservation of registered heritage properties. It deals only with exterior conservation work, so usually roof, siding, windows, doors, front steps, things of that nature. And it's really to help property owners with the somewhat increased burden of skilled trades who can work on heritage properties and the sometimes more expensive materials that come along with that as well. The municipality provides 50% or matching grants for eligible work up to $15,000 for residential properties and up to $25,000 for commercial properties. And that's available to property owners twice in any 4-year period. Whenever a property owner achieves $10,000 or more in a 4-year period, they have to sign a waiver with the municipality, which protects the property from demolition for up to 10 years at a time. And the administrative order that we're working under is 2014-002-ADM, and that is available on the municipal website. And there are also excerpts from that ADM in your staff report. We have applications accepted annually from September 1st to December 1st for payout the following year. Staff's role is to ensure that all of the eligibility criteria under the administrative order are met. And we obviously weed out any ineligible applications, and those include any that are received after December 1st. We provide a score and a rank for each application, and then we bring it forward to this committee for a recommendation to council. And our total budget for this year is $350,000, and that has been the same for the past few years now. We have a scoring system as well, and this comes in handy when we have when the number of grants and the request for funds is larger than the amount that we have in our budget. That was not an issue this year because the total ask is less than our total budget of $350,000. But just to give you an idea of how we rank applications, it is in part by location within the municipality, the type of restoration work that's being done, how visible that work is from a public right-of-way, and how many previous grants that an applicant has been given in the past. In summary, for the applications that we received this year, we have 30 total applications. 4 were ineligible because the work that they proposed was not covered in the administrative order. 2 applications were late, so unfortunately cannot be considered. The total cumulative value of the grants this year is $258,563.60. And as I mentioned, that is well within our $350,000 budget. And I will go through a number of the applications that we received just to give you an idea of some of the work that we've been covering this year. But I should note that a total of $565,000 is going to be spent by property owners in the conservation of their properties aided by this program. So it's definitely more than twice as much as the program is covering, which is great to see. And just to give you an idea of the location of each of the applications as well, we have 6 residential and 1 commercial grants from South End Halifax. Unfortunately, a number of those were found to be ineligible. We have 5 grants from North End Halifax, 9 from Dartmouth, 2 from the former Halifax County, for a total of 24 eligible applications. And here's just a few random examples. 5675 North Street. This is to reshingle the front of the house and paint the dwelling. And that is a grant of $13,515. The Carlton Hotel, or Carlton House, as it's also known. It says South End Halifax, but that does include downtown Halifax for the purpose of our administrative order. This is to replace the flat roof of the building, and they're receiving the total amount of $25,000. Here we have a building in a rural area of the municipality. on Island View Drive in Bootleers Point, and this is for painting the exterior of the dwelling, $4,375. Here we have quite a unique example from Dartmouth. This is to reshingle the roof on 46 Dahlia Street for $10,860. This is one of two 18th century buildings that are receiving money this year. This is 5918 Rogers Drive, also known as the Bower. And they're receiving the maximum amount of $15,000. And 10175 Highway 7 on the Eastern Shore and Salmon River Bridge is receiving $2,950 to reshingle the roof, or sorry, reshingle the west side of the house. And here I have a recommendation for the committee to provide to Regional Council. I'll turn it back to the chair.
So Andrew, you do this as a motion?
Yes, and I've included the motion in the meeting chat for the members.
Just didn't come through to me yet. Do we have a mover for this? Somebody like to make this motion? We need to have one person actually move it in order for it to go forward.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And a seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you, Luke. All in favor of this motion? Do we have
Aye.
agreement?
Aye.
Any opposed? And so being motion carried.
It's Lois here. If I could make just 2 points. It was really good to see so many properties from Dartmouth. And it was also good to see the one, I think it's the Salmon River Bridge up on the Eastern Shore. I believe we recommended its registration a couple of years ago, and it is good now to see them be able to take advantage of funding opportunity.
That is good. A lot of people don't realize there is money out there for some of these things.
Can I raise a question? Is that appropriate this time?
Sure.
A question for staff about the this program. I kind of just noticed that we, left about 90,000 on the table since it wasn't competitive, and I'm wondering if there's any opportunity to slightly raise the caps of the funding amounts. I think it's been the same 15,000 for residential, 25,000 for commercial for a few years, and just recognizing increasing costs. Maybe we could help people out a little bit more by looking to increase those costs in the coming years, or increase those caps.
Sure, happy to address that through you, Mr. Chair, to the member. Right now, the caps for residential and commercial properties are laid out in the administrative order. So in order for us to raise those caps, we would have to bring a motion to Regional Council and have them direct staff to do a review of the administrative order with the purpose of raising the caps. Point certainly taken. Materials and labor have gone up in value quite considerably over the last few years. I believe it was 2018 or 2019 the last time that we raised the caps by about $5,000 for each category. But we do have direction from council to review this grant program and the administrative order. There should be a report coming forward in about the next 3 or 4 months, if all goes well. And we could certainly consider reviewing those caps through that report, and that would make it a little bit easier. We wouldn't have to bring a separate motion to council, and we could simply expand that through staff discretion if the committee would like to ask us to do that.
Certainly makes a matter process rather than a motion. Makes it a little bit easier.
I feel that the direction we've already got from council gives us the ability to review those caps, so I'm certainly happy to include that in our scope.
And you'll bring that back to us.
That's correct.
Aaron, further question. When there's money, as they say, left of the table, is there any provision for that money to roll over to another year?
Unfortunately not. So for any of these programs that don't have a dedicated reserve account, it simply goes back into general revenue.
Okay, thank you.
We are certainly working on that internally, though, to see if there is a way to preserve some funding, especially through our Heritage Conservation District grant program, to ensure that it's sort of self-sustaining over time. So we actually get some funding through density bonusing, and won't get into that right now, but you'll certainly learn a bit about that later on. The hope is that we can have some of those new funds rolled back into the program and make it a bit more self-sustaining.
That would be good. Thank you. Andrea, what do we got next?
Chair McDonald, we have the approval of the 2023 meeting schedule, and I'm just putting the motion in the chat for committee members.
I did look at that. Do we have a mover for the schedule of meetings for the upcoming year?
I'll move to approve that schedule. This is David.
Thank you, David. And a seconder for that, please.
Tyler, and I'll second that.
Thanks, Tyler. Everyone is in agreement with the meeting schedule as proposed? Does anyone have any issues or is opposed to it? None so being, we'll move through with, we'll move forward with that meeting schedule. Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, can I have a vote on that, please? Like just
Want a formal vote? Sure.
Just ask for people to say aye or
Okay.
nay.
Can we have a formal vote, please, by person?
Aye.
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 Anyone else? Aye for me. I'm chair. That's irrelevant. Well, I would say it's carried. Any
Yes.
opposed? It's quietest committee I ever sat on in my life, I swear. Anyone opposed? None so being, it's passed.
So then Chair McDonald, the next item on the list is added items, and there were none. And then the date of the next meeting, which according to the meeting schedule is March 22nd.
That will be by Zoom as well?
Yes, I believe so.
So March 22nd. So our next meeting is March 22nd by Zoom. You had your schedule and time, and I know you'll be given a link well before that, along with an agenda and the minutes from this meeting. I'm open to a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't think that one needs a seconder, does it?
No, it doesn't, Chair.
No, I didn't think so. Well, thank you everyone for this.